All right, so we're here at the Little Mountain Cafe, and we're interviewing the guys from Arrowsmith Search and Rescue, and we're going to talk a little bit about the rescue that happened the other day with the poor little dog who took a misstep off a cliff.
On the other day, we were called out by EMBC that there had been a dog that went over the cliffs at Little Mountain. We were dispatched at approximately 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we had the dog recovered and off to the emergency veterinary clinic in Nanaimo by 1800 hours.
So tell me a little bit about the rescue. What was all involved?
Well, one of our other search managers went to the top of the Little Mountain and deemed it was better if we come in from the bottom with ground crews rather than doing a rope rescue on the animal. So the teams were put together and they all entered in through the access roads at the bottom and had to proceed through the bush to the bottom of the lookout areas.
So tell me a little bit about what you encountered at the bottom.
I'll have to pass that on to somebody who knows a little bit more about what was all encountered at the bottom.
Well, I'll pass that along to Ken and Nick, were they actually the ground teams that were
I'll start
on site.
with the, I lived fairly close. I was the first on scene, so I went to the top, interviewed the family, the owners of the dog, and found out exactly where it went over, and found it was on an overhang, so I knew it would be at the very bottom, and it would be, as far as evacuating out and searching for it, it would be best to go to the end of Bellevue and take the trails from there. So we dispatched teams in. They had to search to find the dog. It was a little bit hard to find initially because it had gone down the bank a ways from below the cliff, but they found it up against a tree, and then the teams went in with stretchers and put it on the stretcher and brought it out, and say it was then taken down to the veterinary. But issues in there, there's a great deal of garbage that's been dropped at the bottom of the cliffs there. And it's a steep enough slope to work on anyway, and all the garbage makes it much more dangerous for people, easier to trip because of the slopes, and some very large items and large quantities just littering all over the bottom there that make it very dangerous for anybody down there, on top of the danger of it, possibility of even small rocks coming from the top if people come near the edge.
So when people think of garbage, they think of household waste and a black garbage bag. What garbage did you encounter?
Oh, there's all kinds of things. There's like washers and dryers. Even people, for some reason, think it's funny to throw off a cliff and litter the bottom. Tires, rimmed metal objects, household garbage, pretty much anything that some people, for some reason, think is funny to throw off a cliff and leave littering on the bottom.
And as you're going up to rescue this dog, like how did that hamper your efforts? Was it a concern for getting cut? And
absolutely, yeah. It's a safety concern getting around it, and say something that's fairly large, and not wanting, if somebody had slipped, they could have actually hurt themselves quite badly on some of these large metal. They cut themselves, and there's always tetanus and whatever else you may pick up from it.
So the rescuers could indeed have been needing rescue.
It could have happened, yeah.
So when you guys talk about the job that you do, how well do you get paid?
Yeah.
We don't get paid as such. We're volunteers. It's 100% volunteer. We're called out by the emergency management of BC, EMBC, through the RCMP. We get reimbursement for expenses, but that's about it.
So, starting on my left again there, how many years have you been volunteering?
I've done 11 years here with Arrowsmith, and then I had approximately 4 years in northern Alberta at Cold Lake.
I've been about 30 years here at Arrowsmith.
I've been with Arrowsmith Search and Rescue for about 4 years now.
I've been with them here in Alberni about 40 years. So.
So we've got some seasoned veterans. We've got a young guy here. What kind of thing can you explain to the people at home about, you know, personal safety when they're entering areas like this?
Well, if you're going into areas like Little Mountain, any of those kind of areas, of course, stay away from the edges, up on the lookout areas. And if people want to hike around the base, again, the garbage down there has become a very big issue. So that's something that they have to be very careful of and try and avoid that stuff.
And this last rescue, it was of a pet.
Yeah.
Can you update us as to the scenario with the pet and the actual status of the pet at this point?
Well, unfortunately, we did get word today that the poor little guy didn't make it. He had broken some vertebrae in his back, and so the family had chosen to have him put down. Quite unfortunate, but at least that gives the family the closure, and you know, that we could at least help them to get to that point, get him to the hospital.
And this is not a first time happening here at this location. Can anybody else speak to the fact of approximately how many other rescues and the type of situations?
Well, we've had rescues and recoveries, of course, you know, from this mountain.
Yeah.
Probably about,
Off the top of my head, we've probably had at least a half a dozen, over 30, 40 years, a half a dozen fatalities up there, as well as probably 4 or 5 serious injuries. Anytime somebody goes over the edge, it's a long ways down. So.
What was the distance again?
Where they went over, it's well over about 100, 120 feet from the top, but it's just straight vertical drop. So.
Into garbage.
In play into garbage and the sloping slope at the bottom and trees and everything else. Yeah.
So, recommendations. What would you guys like to see?
that's a tough question. Ideally, in an ideal world, I guess, is to block vehicle access up to the top, and you know, a fence of some kind along the outer area of the lookout. That might not only help with, you know, having people going over the edge, but it would also maybe cut down on the amount of garbage that gets brought up to the top and thrown over.
Well, we have enough inherent dangers when we're doing the recoveries or searching for people that, you know, that have man-made, you know, obstacles placed in our way. Only compounds the problem and makes it dangerous for everybody. Not, you know, it's just not us here alone. It's all the rescue organizations throughout the province. They're probably suffering from the same scenarios that we get through, but ours has just come to light now. So, with this recovery of the injured animal, and it's, you know, it's something that should maybe be looked into by the authorities.
I'd just like to add too, you know, a big thanks to our whole team. You know, it's a team effort when we do something like this. You know, we're here as search managers and team leader, but it's all the personnel in our whole group that work together and cooperate and maintain their training that gives us the ability to do this kind of a rescue. So it's always thanks to them.